Since I was a child, I had a strong desire to speak English fluently. I would imagine myself traveling abroad, meeting new people, and easily joining conversations in English. However, my biggest challenge was always the same. I could never remember the words I learned. Every time I tried to speak, the phrases I had studied seemed to vanish. It felt like my memory was betraying me. At school, our teacher would give us lists of vocabulary to memorize, but I could never recall them when needed. I spent hours copying words into my notebook, hoping repetition would help. Unfortunately, nothing worked, and my frustration grew. During exams, I would feel completely blank, even though I had studied the night before. This made me doubt my ability to ever improve. One day, I decided to try watching English movies to make learning fun. I thought it would be a perfect way to pick up new words naturally. However, I struggled to understand the dialogues. Even with subtitles, I felt overwhelmed by how fast the characters spoke. I paused the movie every few seconds, which made it more tiring than enjoyable. Learning this way seemed impossible. I remember feeling especially discouraged when a tourist asked me for directions in English. I knew I had learned the necessary phrases, but my mind went blank. All I could say was, "Sorry, no English," and I felt so ashamed. That moment stayed with me and made me question if I was capable of learning at all. I began to think my dream of fluency might never come true, but something inside me refused to give up. I reminded myself of why I wanted to learn English in the first place. I wanted to connect with others, explore new opportunities, and achieve personal growth. I realized that forgetting words wasn't the end of the road. It was simply a challenge that I needed to overcome with determination and creativity. Chapter 2: Discovering New Methods. After struggling for so long, I decided to explore new ways to learn English. I started by researching memory techniques online and came across the idea of flashcards. I wrote words on one side and their meanings on the other. Each morning, I reviewed them, saying the words out loud. It helped a little, but the results were slow. I needed something more engaging and effective to make real progress. I read about the importance of learning words in context rather than in isolation. Instead of memorizing single words, I started learning full phrases. For example, instead of just run, I practiced run out of time or run a marathon. These phrases felt more natural and easier to remember. Writing sentences with these phrases helped even more, giving me a sense of their usage in real life. Another method that changed everything was associating words with images or emotions. When I learned the word joy, I thought about moments that made me truly happy, like birthdays or holidays. Creating a mental picture helped the word stick in my mind. It felt like my brain was creating a vivid story for each word, making them harder to forget. This turned learning into an enjoyable activity. I also discovered the power of music. Listening to English songs and singing along made learning exciting and fun. The rhythm and melody helped me remember words and phrases. I found myself humming songs throughout the day and suddenly recalling words I struggled with before. Music made English learning feel more like a hobby than a chore. Spaced repetition became my final and most effective tool. I used an app to review words at specific intervals, strengthening my memory over time. The app adjusted based on how well I remembered each word, making the process personalized. Slowly but surely, I began noticing real improvement. The combination of all these methods gave me hope that I was finally on the right path. Chapter 3: Overcoming Challenges. Even with all these strategies, learning English wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt stuck, forgetting even the simplest words. I realized that language learning is not a straight path, but a journey with ups and downs. It was frustrating at times, but I kept reminding myself of my progress. Each small victory, like remembering a word or phrase, motivated me to keep going. One of my biggest challenges was finding time to practice consistently. My daily schedule was packed with work and family responsibilities. To solve this, I started integrating English into my routine. I labeled objects in my house with sticky notes, writing their English names. Words like mirror, table, and window became part of my everyday surroundings. This constant exposure made learning effortless. I also joined a local language exchange group. Practicing with native speakers felt intimidating at first, but it turned out to be incredibly rewarding. The group members were supportive and encouraged me to speak without fear of making mistakes. Over time, I became more confident, and speaking English started to feel natural. The conversations became a highlight of my week. Another challenge was overcoming self-doubt. Sometimes I wondered if I would ever reach fluency. Whenever these thoughts crept in, I reminded myself of my why. I wanted to connect with people, travel, and grow as a person. Focusing on my reasons helped me stay motivated. Celebrating small wins, like understanding a movie line or using a new phrase correctly, kept my spirits high. Through these challenges, I learned an important lesson. Persistence is key. There will always be setbacks, but they're not signs of failure. They're opportunities to learn and grow. Each mistake brought me closer to my goal, and each challenge made me stronger. This mindset shift turned my struggles into stepping stones toward success. Chapter 4: Building Confidence. As I practiced more, my confidence began to grow. I stopped worrying so much about making mistakes and focused on communicating. When I forgot a word, I simply found another way to explain myself. This new approach made learning English feel less stressful and more enjoyable. I realized that mistakes were not failures, but opportunities to improve. Teaching others what I had learned became another powerful confidence booster. I started sharing tips and techniques with friends who were also learning English. Helping them understand concepts reinforced my own knowledge. It felt rewarding to see them improve and know that I had contributed to their progress. Teaching made me feel proud of how far I had come. Watching movies and listening to songs in English became a source of pride. One day, I managed to watch an entire movie without subtitles and understood most of it. This felt like a huge milestone for me. It proved that all my hard work was paying off. Achieving this gave me the motivation to keep pushing forward with my studies. I began to notice that my conversations in English were becoming smoother. Whether it was ordering food at a restaurant or chatting with someone online, I could express myself more clearly. These small interactions built my confidence over time. I no longer hesitated to speak, even if I didn't know every word. Confidence made all the difference. The more I practiced, the more I believed in myself. Learning English was no longer just a goal. It had become a part of my life. I felt proud of my journey and excited for what was to come. With each passing day, I grew more determined to achieve fluency. My confidence was no longer just a feeling. It was a skill I had earned. Chapter 5: Achieving the Dream. After months of effort, I finally felt fluent enough to hold conversations comfortably. One day, a tourist approached me and asked for directions. This time, instead of freezing, I smiled and replied, "Sure, I can help you." That moment felt incredible. It was proof that all my struggles and persistence had led to real success. Looking back, I realized that learning English wasn't just about memorizing words. It was about changing my habits, staying consistent, and believing in myself. The journey taught me discipline, patience, and the value of hard work. Each method I tried, each mistake I made, brought me closer to my goal. It was a life-changing experience. Now, I enjoy using English in my everyday life. I watch movies, listen to podcasts, and even read books in English. I no longer feel afraid or embarrassed. Instead, I feel empowered. The language has opened doors for me that I never thought possible. It has connected me to new opportunities and new people. My journey isn't over, but I'm proud of how far I've come. I know there will always be more to learn, but I'm excited for the challenge. To anyone struggling with English, I want to say, don't give up. Keep trying, and you'll find what works for you. Success comes from persistence and believing in yourself. Learning English has taught me that no goal is too big if you're willing to work for it. Remembering words was once my biggest challenge, but now it's my strength. I'm proof that with determination and the right mindset, anything is possible. My dream of fluency has become a reality, and I couldn't be happier. Chapter 6: The Turning Point. The turning point in my journey came when I started focusing on immersion. I realized that I needed to surround myself with English as much as possible. I changed the language on my phone and computer to English, which forced me to interact with the language daily. At first, it was confusing, but over time, I started recognizing words I had learned. These small changes made a huge difference as they kept English present in my life at all times. I also began journaling in English every evening. Writing about my day, my thoughts, and my goals allowed me to practice sentence structure and vocabulary. At first, I felt insecure about making mistakes, but I reminded myself that this journal was just for me. With each entry, I became more comfortable expressing myself, and it felt amazing to see my progress in my own words. Meeting people online was another major breakthrough. I joined language exchange platforms where I could talk to native speakers. These conversations were challenging, especially when I didn't know certain words, but they were incredibly rewarding. My partners were patient and often corrected me kindly. They also taught me colloquial phrases that textbooks never mentioned, which made me sound more natural. One of my favorite moments was when I managed to explain a complex idea in English during a conversation. My partner understood me perfectly, and it felt like a huge achievement. I realized that fluency isn't about knowing every word, but about communicating effectively. This realization boosted my confidence and encouraged me to keep practicing. From that point forward, I felt unstoppable. Immersion wasn't just a technique, it was a lifestyle. I embraced every opportunity to use English, whether it was reading a news article, watching a documentary, or chatting with friends. My learning journey had become exciting and fulfilling, and I finally felt like I was on the path to success. Chapter 7: Learning Through Mistakes. As I became more confident, I realized that mistakes were my best teachers. Every time I mispronounced a word or used the wrong phrase, I learned something new. One day, during a conversation, I mixed up embarrassed and excited, which caused a lot of confusion. My language partner laughed, but instead of feeling discouraged, I saw it as a chance to improve. I started keeping a mistakes notebook where I wrote down errors I made during conversations. Next to each mistake, I wrote the correct form and practiced it several times. This simple habit helped me avoid repeating the same errors and reinforced my understanding of tricky words and grammar rules. Over time, I noticed my mistakes becoming less frequent. Another lesson I learned was not to fear asking questions. If I didn't understand something, I stopped pretending and simply asked for clarification. This helped me learn faster and avoid unnecessary confusion. I discovered that people were usually happy to explain and appreciated my honesty. Asking questions showed my eagerness to learn, which often led to deeper and more meaningful conversations. Recording myself speaking was another effective strategy. Listening to my own voice was awkward at first, but it helped me identify areas where I needed improvement. I noticed mispronunciations and adjusted my tone and intonation. Over time, I sounded more natural and confident. Hearing my progress motivated me to keep pushing forward. Mistakes became a normal part of my learning process, and I no longer feared them. Instead, I embraced them as opportunities to grow. Each error brought me closer to fluency and reminded me that learning is a journey, not a race. My mindset shifted from perfectionism to persistence, and that made all the difference. Chapter 8. The Power of Practice. Consistency became the foundation of my progress. I realized that practicing English every day, even for a short time, was more effective than studying for hours once a week. I created a schedule that included listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This balanced approach kept me engaged and ensured I improved in all areas of the language. Listening became my favorite activity. I subscribed to English podcasts and listened to them during my daily commute. At first, I struggled to keep up, but I focused on understanding the main ideas rather than every word. Over time, my listening skills improved, and I could follow more complex discussions. It was rewarding to realize how much I had advanced. Reading books in English was another game changer. I started with children's books because their simple language and engaging stories were perfect for beginners. Gradually, I moved on to novels and nonfiction books. Each new book expanded my vocabulary and exposed me to different writing styles. Reading also helped me understand grammar rules naturally. Speaking practice was the most challenging, but also the most rewarding. I dedicated time each day to speaking out loud. Even if I was alone, I practiced in front of a mirror, imagining different scenarios. This not only improved my pronunciation, but also made me more confident. Recording these sessions allowed me to track my progress. Writing became an enjoyable way to express myself. I wrote essays, emails, and even short stories in English. Each piece of writing was an opportunity to apply what I had learned. Reviewing my work and correcting errors helped me refine my skills. The power of consistent practice was undeniable, and it brought me closer to fluency with every passing day. Chapter 9. Facing My Fears. Public speaking in English was one of my biggest fears. The idea of standing in front of people and speaking a language I wasn't fluent in terrified me. However, I knew that overcoming this fear was essential for my growth. I joined a local English-speaking club where members took turns giving presentations. My first attempt was nerve-wracking, but it was also a valuable learning experience. Preparing for my speech was challenging. I practiced every day, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. I rehearsed in front of friends who gave me constructive feedback. On the day of my presentation, I felt nervous but also prepared. I reminded myself that making mistakes was okay and that the audience was there to support me. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and began. At first, my voice trembled, but as I continued, I gained confidence. I focus on communicating my ideas rather than worrying about perfection. The audience's smiles and encouraging nods helped me relax. By the end of my speech, I felt proud of what I had accomplished. The experience taught me the importance of stepping out of my comfort zone. Facing my fears allowed me to grow and realize my potential. I started volunteering for more speaking opportunities, each time feeling more confident and capable. Public speaking became a strength rather than a weakness. Conquering this fear was a turning point in my journey. It reminded me that challenges are opportunities in disguise. By embracing discomfort and taking risks, I discovered new abilities within myself. This lesson extended beyond language learning and enriched other areas of my life. Chapter 10, A Journey Worth Taking. As I reflect on my journey, I'm amazed at how far I've come. What once felt impossible is now a reality. Speaking English fluently has opened doors I never imagined. I've made friends from around the world, gained confidence, and discovered a love for learning. The challenges I faced along the way only made the achievement sweeter. Looking back, I realized that persistence was the key to my success. Every small step, from learning new words to practicing conversations, contributed to my progress. The journey wasn't always easy, but it was worth every effort. The skills I've gained and the experiences I've had are invaluable. Fluency isn't the end of the road. It's a new beginning. There's always more to learn and explore. I've set new goals, like mastering advanced grammar and understanding different accents. The excitement of continuous improvement keeps me motivated. English has become more than just a language. It's a part of who I am. To anyone struggling with learning English, I want to say, don't give up. The journey is challenging, but the rewards are life-changing. Find methods that work for you. Stay consistent and embrace mistakes. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and remember why you started. Your dream is within reach. Learning English has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. It taught me resilience, patience, and the power of perseverance. This journey has transformed me, not just as a learner, but as a person. I'm proud of what I've achieved and excited for what lies ahead. Chapter 11. Overcoming the plateau. After months of consistent progress, I hit a plateau. It felt like I was no longer improving, no matter how much effort I put in. This phase was frustrating, and I began questioning if I could ever achieve true fluency. I still practice daily, but my enthusiasm dwindled as I struggled to see results. Despite these doubts, I reminded myself of how far I had come. Plateaus, I realized, were a natural part of learning. They didn't signify failure, but rather an opportunity to refine my approach and push through barriers. I decided to try new methods to reignite my progress. One major change was incorporating advanced materials into my study routine. I started watching documentaries on topics I wasn't familiar with and reading articles that challenged my comprehension. At first, these tasks felt overwhelming, but they exposed me to new vocabulary and ideas. This fresh exposure expanded my language skills and kept me engaged. Joining a debate club also helped me push past the plateau. The club required me to think quickly and articulate my thoughts clearly in English. Each debate session was a test of my vocabulary, pronunciation, and confidence. I made mistakes, of course, but those errors taught me more than any textbook ever could. The feedback I received from peers was invaluable, and the competitive environment motivated me to improve. Another strategy was setting specific goals. Instead of vaguely aiming for fluency, I set measurable targets, like learning 50 new words each month or writing an essay every week. These smaller objectives gave me a sense of accomplishment and made the larger goal of fluency feel more attainable. Reaching these milestones restored my confidence and reminded me that progress, no matter how slow, was still progress. By the end of this phase, I realized that plateaus are not the end of learning, but a chance to recalibrate. They test your patience and commitment, but overcoming them leads to greater growth. Breaking through this challenging period taught me resilience and deepened my appreciation for the learning process. Chapter 12. Building Connections Through Language. One of the most rewarding aspects of learning English was the ability to connect with people from different cultures. As my confidence grew, I started seeking opportunities to meet native speakers and fellow learners. I attended international meetups in my city, where people gathered to practice languages and share experiences. These events were eye-opening, as they allowed me to learn about other cultures while improving my communication skills. I remember one particular meetup where I met a traveler from Australia. We had a long conversation about his adventures, and for the first time, I felt comfortable speaking entirely in English without overthinking my words. This interaction showed me that language is not just a tool for communication, but a bridge that connects people across boundaries. It made all my efforts feel worthwhile. Online communities also played a significant role in building connections. I joined forums and social media groups dedicated to language learning. In these spaces, I found people who shared my struggles and triumphs. We exchanged tips, practiced together, and celebrated each other's progress. The sense of belonging and mutual support kept me motivated, especially on days when I felt discouraged. Participating in cultural exchange programs further enriched my experience. I volunteered as a host for international students visiting my country. In return, they helped me improve my English by correcting my speech and teaching me idiomatic expressions. These exchanges deepened my understanding of the language and gave me lifelong friendships. Building connections through English taught me the true value of language. It's not just about mastering grammar or vocabulary, but about fostering understanding and empathy. These connections reminded me why I started this journey in the first place and motivated me to continue learning with enthusiasm and purpose. Chapter 13: Embracing Advanced Challenges. As my skills improved, I sought out more advanced challenges to continue growing. One of these challenges was tackling academic English. I enrolled in an online course that focused on writing essays and conducting research. The course was demanding, requiring me to analyze complex texts and articulate my thoughts clearly. However, it pushed me to refine my grammar and expand my vocabulary. Writing essays was particularly difficult. Each assignment required me to structure my arguments logically and use formal language. I spent hours researching topics and drafting outlines before writing the final piece. Although it was time-consuming, the process taught me discipline and attention to detail. By the end of the course, I felt more confident in my ability to express sophisticated ideas in English. Another challenge was understanding regional accents. While I was comfortable with standard American and British accents, I struggled with others like Australian or Scottish. To improve, I watched videos and listened to podcasts featuring diverse speakers. At first, it was frustrating to miss words or phrases, but I gradually adapted. This exposure enhanced my listening skills and prepared me for real-world conversations. Public speaking remained a priority. I joined a Toastmasters club to refine my presentation skills. The structured format of the club allowed me to practice speaking in front of an audience regularly. Each session included evaluations, which highlighted areas for improvement. Over time, I learned to manage my nerves and deliver speeches with clarity and confidence. Embracing advanced challenges showed me that learning never truly ends. Each new hurdle pushed me out of my comfort zone and brought me closer to fluency. These experiences reinforced the idea that growth comes from persistence and a willingness to tackle the unfamiliar. Chapter 14: Sharing My Journey. As I became more fluent, I felt a strong desire to share my journey with others. I started a blog where I documented my experiences, challenges, and strategies for learning English. Writing these posts allowed me to reflect on my progress and solidify my understanding of the language. It was rewarding to see readers engaging with my content and sharing their own stories. The blog became a platform for exchanging ideas. I received messages from people worldwide who were inspired by my journey. They asked questions, shared tips, and expressed their gratitude for the advice I provided. These interactions reminded me of the struggles I faced when I started learning English and motivated me to help others overcome their challenges. I also began hosting workshops in my community. These sessions focus on practical strategies for language learning, such as improving pronunciation, building vocabulary, and staying motivated. Teaching others reinforced my own knowledge and gave me a sense of fulfillment. Seeing participants make progress and gain confidence was incredibly rewarding. Social media became another avenue for sharing my journey. I created videos where I discussed common mistakes, explained grammar rules, and shared motivational tips. These videos reached a wide audience, and the positive feedback encouraged me to keep creating content. It was amazing to see how my story resonated with so many people. Sharing my journey taught me the importance of giving back. By helping others, I not only reinforced my own skills, but also contributed to a supportive community of learners. This experience deepened my passion for language and reminded me of the power of perseverance and positivity. Chapter 15. A Lifetime of Learning. As my journey continued, I realized that learning English was just the beginning. The skills and habits I developed during this process inspired me to pursue other goals. I started learning a third language, exploring new hobbies, and setting ambitious career objectives. The confidence I gained from mastering English gave me the courage to embrace challenges in all areas of life. Reflecting on my journey, I felt immense gratitude for the support I received along the way. From language partners to online communities, every interaction contributed to my growth. These connections showed me that learning is not a solitary endeavor, but a collective effort. The encouragement I received motivated me to pay it forward and support others in their pursuits. Looking ahead, I'm excited to continue expanding my knowledge. English has opened doors to opportunities one never imagined, from traveling to networking with professionals worldwide. Each experience has enriched my life and reinforced the value of perseverance. I've learned that progress comes from dedication and a willingness to embrace discomfort. Fluency is not the end of the road, but a stepping stone to greater achievements. My journey has taught me that the process of learning is as important as the destination. The challenges I faced made the successes more meaningful, and the skills I gained extended beyond language. They shaped me into a more resilient, curious, and confident individual. This journey is one I will cherish forever. It taught me that with the right mindset and consistent effort, anything is possible. I'm proud of how far I've come and excited for what lies ahead. The story of learning English is not just about language. It's about growth, connection, and the endless possibilities of the human spirit.